Hi guys, very good morning to all of you. This is Deepinder Singh and let us begin with our discussion. I hope you guys can hear me properly and you can see my screen. If yes, then please type in yes in the chat box. Guys, am I audible? Guys, can you hear me? Okay, right. Thanks for the confirmation. So let us begin with our discussion. Yesterday we talked about Selenium. We had an introduction to Selenium, what Selenium is, what versions of Selenium have been introduced, and stuff like that. So it was, as I told you yesterday, was a theoretical session where we got an introduction to Selenium, that what Selenium does and what it can do. Today we are going to move towards Java. That Java which we require so that we can start working with Selenium Webdriver, that is what we're going to start with. Okay, so this is the prerequisite so that we can move on to Selenium Webdriver. So today's session is going to be dedicated to Java. What will we be learning in Java? Let us see that. So just a moment. Let me just open the slides. Okay, so I'll show you this slide as well. So what are we going to discuss today? In Java, we'll be discussing these three things today: classes, objects, and methods. So these three things are the very basic things, are the foundation of what we are going to do in the coming sessions. So if we understand these things properly, we'll be able to understand Selenium WebDriver as well. So let us start with that. Now, when we say that we're going to start with Java, from where do we start? Java is a very vast topic. We discussed about this yesterday as well. That is very vast. It is divided into two parts: core Java and advanced Java. So which is the first topic when we say we're going to start with Java? The very first thing we need to understand is we're going to talk about a concept that is called as object-oriented programming. You might have heard about this, object-oriented programming. In short form, it is also called as OOPS, object-oriented programming. So what is this object-oriented programming? Object-oriented programming is a concept. It is a concept which is the base, which is the resultant, which is the foundation of many programming languages. This concept is followed by Java. Java is based on object-oriented programming concepts. This concept is followed by C#. It is followed by Ruby. It is followed by Python. And many other languages have been built on the principles of object-oriented programming. So this object-oriented programming is a concept. Just like when we talk about a concept such as democracy. Now, democracy is a concept. It is a concept which is not a prerogative, which is not a copyright of any one country. Many countries follow this. US follows this. UK follows this. India follows this. And many other countries follow this. So democracy is a concept which is followed by many countries. Many country follow this concept. So this is not a copyright of any one country. Similarly, object-oriented programming is a concept which is followed by Java. C Sharp, Ruby, and Python. Once we understand this concept, it is just that we need to understand the syntax. Just like if you have to explain democracy, you can explain democracy in English, you can explain democracy in Tamil, you can explain democracy in Telugu or Spanish or French. You can use any language to explain the concept of democracy. Similarly, object-oriented programming is a concept which can be explained by many languages. We can explain it using the syntax of Java. We can explain it using the syntax of C Sharp or Ruby or Python or many other languages. Okay, so all these languages actually have been built upon the same principles. We are going to actually understand, when I say we're going to understand Java, we're going to learn Java, actually that is a bit untrue. We are going to learn object-oriented programming. We are going to learn object-oriented programming through the syntax of Java. So that is the correct way of speaking it. Okay, so if we understand object-oriented programming through the syntax of Java, because Java itself doesn't have any of its own concepts, it is just explaining the concepts of object-oriented programming. So if you understand the object-oriented programming through Java, we can also say that you've understood the object-oriented programming through C Sharp as well. You've understood Ruby as well, you've understood Python as well, because they have been built on the same concept. You just need to understand, if you want to move towards C Sharp, you just need to understand the syntax of C Sharp. If you want to learn Ruby, you just need to understand the syntax of Ruby, because you already know the concepts of object-oriented programming, right? So the thing which they are explaining is same, they're just using different syntax to explain the same concept. So one thing is for sure, we're going to start with something called as object-oriented programming. Now when we say we're going to start with object-oriented programming, what is the first topic we start with in object-oriented programming? So the first thing we're going to start with in object-oriented programming is class. We will understand what is a class, then we will understand what is an object, then we will move on to the concept method. Right? So these are the basic things we are going to start with today, which will help us to understand Selenium Webdriver, because Selenium Webdriver also follows these concepts of class, object, and methods. Okay, so let us start with that. So the first thing we'll start with is classes, then we'll move on to objects, and then we'll move on to methods. So first of all, we'll just see the bookish definition of class and object, and then we'll move on to understand the concept. But first, let's just read the bookish definition. So it says a class is a group of objects that has common properties. It is a template or blueprint from which objects are created. That is the definition. And object says an entity that has state and behavior is known as an object. So that is the definition of an object. So there are two things. One is class and one is an object. So what is the difference between them? Let us try to understand them. So what is the meaning of the concept of class and object, and how do we use that? That is what we're going to understand now. So to understand this, I'm just going to explain you this with another slide. So just hold on. Okay, so on your screen, you can see one picture. Just reply with an answer. What is there on the screen? Just don't try to be technical. Don't try to be uh, complex. Just give as simple answer as possible. What do you see on the screen? Yes, guys, come up with the answer. What do you think? What do you see on the screen? Okay, so I see the answers as car. I see the answers as wheels and smoke. Another answer is car. Okay, so that's fine. Let us go into the next picture. So what do you see here? Okay, so this time the answers are like Audi, real car, road, trees. Yes, correct. And one last picture, and then we'll understand the concept. So what do you see here this time? Okay, so this time I see the answer as black shade or black car. Okay, and one answer is Mercedes. Correct. Okay, so let us understand this concept now. Let's try to understand what do we have on the screen. So I've shown you three pictures. I've shown you three pictures. The first one is this picture where a general representation of car is shown. Then there was second picture where we saw an Audi car. Then there was third picture where we saw a black Mercedes. So what's the difference between these three pictures? What do we have here? So the difference is the first picture which you saw, when I asked you what do you see on the screen, you said this is a car. No one said this is a Honda or a BMW or a Mercedes or a Toyota. Everyone said that this is a car. You did not take a specific name. Why did you say so? Because you saw this shape. Because we are accustomed to see this shape, and when we see this shape, we say that this is a car, right? So we say this is a car, but we cannot say this is a specific car because this is general representation of a car. So according to Java, when you're talking about general things which represents the real world things in general, according to Java, we call it as a class. Okay, so according to Java, here we're talking about a class car. Okay, class is nothing but just a category. Here we're speaking about a category of vehicle that is a car. You did not say this is a bus, this is a truck, or this is an aeroplane. You simply said that this is a car. Okay, because this is a generic representation of a vehicle that we term as the car. So category word is called as class in Java. Okay, so class is just nothing, it is just a category of things. So here we're talking about a category of vehicle that is car, and Java terms it as class. When we talk about the real world things, the actual things, Java calls it as an object. Okay, so the real world things or the specific things which I showed you, Java terms it as the object. So Audi is an object because that's a real world thing. Okay, that is the Audi. When we say Audi, that is not a generic representation of a car, that is a particular car. Okay, car is also a real world thing, but that is a generic representation. So if it is a generic representation, then it is a class, but if it is a specific thing we are talking about, then it is an object. Okay, Audi is an object, Mercedes is an object, BMW is an object, Toyota is an object. So these are the objects of the class car. Okay, so this is the concept of class and an object. I'll just give you a couple of more examples. So here we have class and here we have an object. Okay, so have we class and object. So we've seen one example here. Car is a class and its object is BMW, Audi, Mercedes or anything. Okay, so you can take any name. The other example of that can be fruit. Fruit is a generic word. If I say I had fruits in the breakfast, so that is a generic word. Okay, so according to Java, that is a class. Its specific examples could be apple or banana or mango. Okay, so it can be any fruit. So if you talk about a specific fruit, according to Java, we're talking about the object, right? The other example of that can be vegetable. So vegetable again is a generic word. It is not a specific word. So vegetable represents many kinds of eatables. The example of that could be onion, potato, right? So many examples can be there. So other example of that could be bird. Bird is a generic word. Okay, so the specific example of that can be sparrow. It can be eagle. It can be parrot. Okay, it can be many other things. So bird is a generic word, and sparrow, eagle, and parrot are its objects. Right? I hope now you understand the concept. So this way, can you come up with some more examples from the real world things which we see around? What can be called as a class and what can be considered as an object? Any real world thing can you come up with? Just think about anything and you can type your answers in. Okay, so we have one example here. Uh, Colors as class, red, yellow as the objects. Yes, absolutely correct. So colors is a class, colors is a generic word. Red, yellow, green, blue are the objects of that class. Absolutely perfect. So any other example? What about other guys? I just got one answer. Okay, so the other answer I got is mobile, and the object are HTC, Samsung, Apple. Yes, absolutely correct. Right, so this can be the other example. Mobile is a class, and HTC, Apple, Samsung are the objects. So these are the classes and objects. Absolutely correct. Now let us just read the definition once again and see. Does it make sense this time? So it says a class is a group of objects that has common properties. What are the common properties? Just if you talk about the class car, so if you say car is a group of objects that has common properties, so now all the cars have common properties, like all of them have a steering wheel, all of them have wheels on which the car moves on, all of them have an engine from where the car derives its power. So these are some common properties. Okay, so class is a group of objects that has common properties. It is a template or blueprint from which objects are created. So what is a template or blueprint of a car? The template of a car is this, the shape which we are accustomed to see. That's a template or blueprint of a car. The moment we see this shape, we say this is a car. Okay, so based on this, all the cars are created or are manufactured. So it is a template or blueprint from which the objects are created. Object means an entity that has state and behavior is known as an object. So that particular set of properties due to which a particular thing has its own state of existence. Okay, so that we term as the object. Like car, like BMW has its own state of existence. It can be distinguished from Mercedes because it has a certain set of properties which are different from that of BMW. So entity that has state and behavior is known as an object. So that is the definition. So these definitions, no one is going to ask you in the interview that what is the definition of a class and what is the definition of an object, but this is important for you to understand because this is the building block of what we are going to learn, what we're going to do in the coming sessions. So this is important for you to understand. Okay, so now what will we do here? We've understood the definition of class and an object. What will we do here? I'm going to create a Word document. In this Word document, we'll keep writing certain shortcuts which we come across while doing the coding, or if something needs to be remembered, if there is some important point from interview point of view, if you need to remember that, we'll keep writing here. Okay, so we'll call this as a running document, and I'll forward you this document after the class. So here, let us put today's date. It is July 15. Okay, so here I'll create one table. Okay, so in this table, what will we do? We'll write the equivalence of English. Okay, so this term which we speak in general English, the equivalence of that we'll write here so that we can understand the concept, right? So just see this. I'm going to write here generic English or general English, and here on the right hand side we'll write its Java equivalent. Okay, so in general English we say Audi is a car, right? Its Java equivalent will be, using the terminology of Java, will be speaking Audi is an object of class car. The meaning of both the sentences is same. Audi is a car, that is what we speak in general English. If you have to speak in the terminology of Java, we will be speaking Audi is an object of class car. Okay, so you have to say it is an object, and to which class does it belong to, you also have to say its name. So Audi is an object of class car. Sometimes it can also be written as, if in some books it is also referred to as Audi is an instance of class car. The meaning of both the sentences is same. If you say whether you say Audi is an object of class car, or if you say Audi is an instance of class car, meaning of both the sentences is same. But the word object is used more often, that is more frequently used. Instance is also used, but that is less frequent. So if you see the word instance, just understand that it has the same meaning. So Audi is an object of class car, Audi is an instance of class car, meaning of both the sentences is same. Now what we have to do, this sentence which you've written, Audi is an object of class car, we have to convert this into code. Okay, so we have to write it in the Eclipse. We are going to see how the code of this will be written. Because in your projects also, what will happen, you will be given a requirement in general English. Okay, so your supervisor will say, okay, so you have to automate so and so project, or you have to automate so and so test case. So they will just explain you the flow in English. You have to convert that in your mind, its Java equivalent, and from the Java equivalent you have to convert it into code. You have to write the test case using the Java code. So that is what we're going to do now. This sentence which we've written in English, we're going to see how to convert it into code. For that, what will we do? Let us see that. So to convert it into code, we know we need to open Eclipse which we installed yesterday. So let us open Eclipse. So this is the Eclipse shortcut we created. So now I'm going to open Eclipse. Eclipse and Java we installed yesterday. So when you open Eclipse, it asks you this thing. It says select a directory as workspace. So what is workspace? It is simply asking you to select a folder where you want to store your code. Okay, so where do you want to save your code? It is asking the name and path of that folder. So workspace is just the folder where your code will be saved. So by default there will be one path which it will be showing to you. I'll create a new folder. I'm going to keep all the programs in D drive. So I've created in my D drive, I've created a folder Eclipse workspace, and inside this I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm just going to call it as S19. This is an empty folder. You can see there is nothing inside it. So we will point our workspace to this folder. So you can just browse to this location, D drive and Eclipse workspace, and inside this we have S19 folder which we just created, and I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to click on launch. So when we click on launch, you will see one folder is created .metadata. So it is just some settings which Eclipse is going to keep here. We are not going to touch it. So let it just be there. So this is the screen you're going to see when you open Eclipse for the first time. It says welcome to Eclipse IDE for Java developers. Just close this welcome screen. Now when you open that, you will see your entire Eclipse screen is divided into 5 different sections. One is this package explorer. One is this bigger section which is empty. Then there is one task list. Just close that, we don't require it. There is one outline as well. Close that too. We don't require that as well. So now we have 3 sections on the screen. Package explorer, this section where it is entirely blank, and there is this problems tab which you see, this last section here. So this is that part of the section, that part of the screen where if there is an error, the error will be displayed here. If there is some problem in the syntax, that will be told to you here. When we execute the code, after writing the code, there is one run button here at the top. When we click on that run button, there will be a new tab created here. Right now we have 3 tabs: problems, Java doc, and declaration. After that, a new tab will be created that is called as console. In that tab, the output will be displayed. So this is the section where the output will be displayed to us. So this package explorer, let us understand this. What is package explorer is going to have? This package explorer is that section where list of all the programs will be maintained. Whatever programs we're going to create, list of all those programs will be maintained here. So that if you want to move from last program to first program, you just need to double click the name of that program and that will be opened. Okay, so this is package explorer. This bigger section which you see here, this is that section where we will be actually writing our Java code. Okay, so we will be writing the code here. After writing the code, we are going to click on the run button, and when we click on the run button, the output will be displayed here at the bottom section. So these are the 3 sections we'll be dealing with. Let us see how do we start with that. This is the same layout. This is the same software we are going to use to write Selenium code as well. So there is a question here: do we create folder in RealTime Object 2? Seema, which folder are you talking about? As of now, we haven't created any folder yet. Which folder are you talking about? S19. Okay, yes, you will have to create a folder. Generally, it will be in the C drive. So there also you will have to do it. Okay, so how exactly will you do it? You will understand that when we talk about GitHub. Okay, so yes, you will create a folder where your code will be saved. So generally it is going to be in C drive, because in your office laptop which you will be getting, generally it will be just one drive. So your programs will be saved in the C drive. So there also you will be creating a folder where your workspace is created, because without creating a workspace you cannot write any program in Eclipse. So there also you'll have to create one. Okay, the exact procedure, how you have to proceed with that, we'll talk about this when we move on the concept of GitHub. Okay, so it is going to be in the last session, 10th session, there we'll be talking about this. Okay. All right, so now I want to write the code here in this section, this bigger section, but if I try to click here, nothing happens here. I cannot do that. So what will I do here? So as to write the code here, what I need to do, first we need to go to File, then go to New, and then you will see a list in which you will see Java project. So select Java project. When you click on Java project, it asks you to give a name to this project. So we're going to give a name here as Java Basics. Just press enter after writing the name. After creating the project, just see, still if I click here, nothing happens. I cannot write the code here. So what I need to do, just expand this Java Basics project which we just created. When we expand that, you see it has 2 things inside it. One is JRE system library. We'll talk about this. What is this after some time? So just ignore for some time. And one is SRC. SRC is a source folder where the code will be saved. Okay, so this is a SRC folder, source folder, and JRE system library. So what you need to do after creating the project, right click this src folder, because inside this we'll be writing the code. So right click this src folder and again go to new. Again you will see the same list which we saw earlier. So it says Java project, no, we've already created that. Groovy project, no. Now this option Groovy project will not be shown to you because I've installed Groovy in my system as well. So it is automatically detecting, Eclipse is automatically detecting that since Groovy is installed, I can offer this human to create a Groovy project as well. But if in your system Groovy is not installed, it won't offer you to create a Groovy project. Okay, so it will just vary from system to system. So it will not be there in your system if Groovy is not installed. Then it says project. It says if you don't want to create a Java project, if you don't want to create a Groovy project, I have some other projects to offer. You can create, you can have a look at those folder as well. You can have a look at those projects as well. So we'll say no, we don't want to create any other project because we've already created one Java project. So move on to the next item. Next item is package. Yes, now we have to create a package. So just click on package. Okay, so it says create a new. Here it is written create a new Java package, and here it is asking us to give a name to this package. So just give a name as demo. So first we'll talk about the naming convention, then I'll tell you what is the meaning of a package. Let's talk about the naming convention. When you have to name your package, it should always be starting with a lowercase letter. If you start with the uppercase letter, you see you will get a warning symbol here at the top, this yellow color symbol. It says discouraged package name. By convention, package names usually start with a lowercase letter. So it says the convention is not this, the way you have created this package. It should not be like this. You should be creating a package with a lowercase letter. So the name of the package is demo, right? So we've named it as demo. After that, just click on finish. Now, what is a package? Package is just going to group your similar programs together. Just like if you visit a grocery store, you buy some eatable, you buy bread, you buy biscuits, and you buy fruits, and also you buy soaps and detergents. After buying all these things, when you go at the counter to pay for all these items, what does the shopkeeper do? He is going to pack the similar items together. The eatables, bread, biscuit, and butter, they will be packaged separately, and soaps and detergents will be packaged separately so that the strong fragrance of soaps and detergent doesn't get mixed up with the eatables, right? So as to keep the freshness of the eatables intact, fruits and vegetables are packaged separately from that of the detergents. So similarly, here also the different packages are used to package similar programs together. All those programs which I'm going to create here for demonstration purposes, I'm going to put under the demo package. Okay, so package is just going to group our similar programs together. It is just a folder under which we'll be creating certain kind of programs. So those programs for demonstration purposes, I'll be creating under this package. Right, so package has been created. After that, again, now you have to right click this package. So first we right click the source folder. Now we're going to click on the we're going to right click on the package. So here we'll again go to new. Again the same list is shown to us. It says Java project, no, we've already done with that. Groovy project, no. Some other kind of project, no. Package, already done with that. Next item in the list is class. It says, do you want to create a class? Yes, I want to create a class. So just click on that. So it says what name do you want to give to your class. So I'll say the class name I want to create is car. Press enter. So when we do that, now we are able to write something on this right hand side of the screen. So we have to perform 3 steps before we can actually start writing the code. So what have we done here? First we created a project by going to file. After creating the project, we right click the source folder, we created a package inside it. After creating the package, we created a class inside it, and the name of that class has been given as car. The extension of that, just see, automatically has become .java. Here on the right hand side where we're going to write the code, it says package is demo. After that there is a semicolon. So package demo tells us the current location, the current folder we are working in. So it says you are currently working inside the package whose name is demo. Semicolon is the way by which we end a statement in Java. Just like we use full stop in English to end a sentence, in Java we use a semicolon to end a sentence. Okay, so public class car, public is again is a access modifier, is a keyword which we'll talk about after some time at a later stage. Class, we know what is a class. Car is the name of that class, and here we have two curly braces. One is this and one is this, right? Whatever we have to write, whatever code we have to write, that is to be written inside these two curly braces only. You can extend its size, you can increase the size of this class definition by pressing enter, but whatever is to be written, that is to be written inside this class only. Okay, so we have created public class car. I see one question here. Avi, I'll be coming to your question after some time. Yes, we'll be doing that. Your question, I'll be coming just after 5 minutes. We'll discuss that too. Okay. So public class car. Now, after this public class car has been created, inside this we'll be writing something called as public static void main, and inside that we'll write string args. Now, what is the meaning of this public static void main? This is that sentence which we have to write every time when we create a class. Okay, so without writing this, our code will not work. Just like when you want to drive a car, when you go to learn a car, that how to drive a car. So what the instructor is going to tell you, the instructor is going to tell you that to drive a car, you have to put it in the gear and you have to leave the clutch and you have to press the accelerator, and slowly the car will start moving. But before you do this thing, before you put the car in the first gear, you have to switch on the ignition. So this is the switching off on of the ignition. Okay, so this is to be done every time. Without writing this public static void main, our code will not work. Okay, so this is an entry point of the program. We'll discuss more on this when we discuss methods. So just assume that, just understand that this is something which you have to write every time. Whenever you create a class, this public static void main has to be written every time. Without writing this, we cannot run the program. If I click to run, try to click on this run button, nothing will work. So we have to click on the run button. Okay, since this is something which we write every time, Eclipse gives us a shortcut for that. Okay, as such, if you have to type public static void main, it's a big thing if you have to write again and again. So there is a shortcut for that. What you can do, you can simply write main and press Control and space. Okay, just use your arrow key and press enter. Okay, so Eclipse will complete it for you. Let's see it once again. Just write main, Control, space, enter. So Eclipse completes it for you. That's a shortcut. If you're using Mac, just write main, command and space and press enter. So this will be written for you. So I'll write this shortcut in the running notes as well. So all these shortcuts which we come across, I'll be writing it here. So there will be many shortcuts we'll be seeing. So for your easy reference, I'll mention all of them here. Shortcuts. Okay, so the first shortcut is write main, press Control, press space, press enter. What it does, it writes public static void main string for you. Okay, so that's a shortcut. Now after writing this public static void main, whatever we have to write, that is to be written inside this only. Okay, so whatever I'm going to write here, we'll be writing it here. Now as I told you, what we created here, we created a sentence, Audi is an object of class car. We have to convert this into code. So how can I convert this into code? For that, we just need to write one line. Just write car Audi is equal to new car and end the sentence with a semicolon. That's it. Meaning of the sentences, this sentence literally translates into Audi is an object of class car. Okay, so this is the literal meaning of the sentence. So first what we did, we wrote the name of the class. Okay, so just see car here, they have to be same, they cannot be different. Audi is the object which we want to create. We wanted to create Audi is equal to new, we are using a keyword new, car. Okay, and And also notice on the right hand side with the car there is a parenthesis. On the left hand side there is no parenthesis, and here on the right hand side there is a parenthesis. The reason of that is something which is not a part of this discussion, but just notice it here that this is there. Okay, so car Audi is equal to new car. So here on the right hand side, what I've written here after putting two slashes, this is called as a comment. Comment means Java is going to ignore whatever we've written after two slashes. So Java will think that this is something which a human has written for a fellow human. Okay, so it is going to ignore that. It is just going to process, it is just going to compile what we have written here before the double quote. So this is called as a comment. Okay, so meaning of this sentence is Audi is an object of class car. So the sentence which we wrote here, Audi is an object of class car, gets converted into code like this. Okay, so very simple. This is how we'll be doing all the things. Will we keep dealing with these things? We'll have to create a class, we'll have to create an object. This is an object oriented programming. So object holds prominence here. Okay, so when we say object oriented programming, means this kind of programming which you're going to learn here, this is oriented towards objects. Okay, just like the organizations term themselves as we are customer oriented companies. Customer is at the center, customer is at the focus, everything is done for the customers. Similarly, this kind of programming is object oriented programming. Here object is going to be at the center, object is going to hold prominence. Without creating the object, the things will not work. Okay, so object will be creating every time, and whenever we have to create the object, this is the syntax you have to write. Just remember that. Okay, so the syntax of creating the object is class name object name is equal to new class name followed by parenthesis. Just remember the syntax. Now this object oriented programming, this kind of programming, why was this created? Before this object oriented kind of programming, we had something called as procedural programming, like C. You might have heard about that language, C. Before Java came into being, we had C kind of languages. Now those programming languages were working fine, but the problem started when we had to make our programs more complex. We had to talk about the real world things. Those C programming could do the basic programs, we could create the basic programs in that very easily, but if we had to create those programs which could deal with real world problems with more accuracy, either they became very complex or they were completely incapable of describing the real world problems. So that is why object oriented programming was created, so that it can talk about the real world things easily. So since we are talking about the real world things like Audi, like Mercedes, BMW, banana, apple, mango, we're talking about the real world things. The real world things will have their properties as well. Okay, they will have their own color, they have own height, breadth, weight. So different properties will be associated with the objects. So let us talk about this Audi. Now Audi is a real world object. We have to talk about what is the color of this car, or if there's a parking lot, how many cars are parked in that parking lot. Let's talk about that. Okay, so if let's say there are 10 cars parked in a parking lot, all of them are Audi. How can we describe the number of cars parked in a lot? So we will say number of cars is equal to 10. Okay, so number of cars is a variable we have created. The value of that is 10. Okay, now here just notice that this is underlined with the red color, number of cars. Why is it underlined with the red color? This is underlined with red color because in Java you have to specify what kind of variable is this. Just like on your visa, it is typed to which country do you belong to. Do you belong to India? Do you belong to South Africa? Do you belong to Australia? To which country do you belong to if you are a foreigner? Right? Similarly, with the variables also, we must write what kind of variable is it. Is it going to hold just integer values? Is it just going to hold some words inside it? Is it just going to hold some true false values? Is it going to hold some decimal values? What kind of values will it hold? So we have to tell them. Okay, so here we have to write int. Int means this variable whose name is number of cars, it is just going to hold integers inside it. It cannot hold words inside it. I cannot say number of cars is equal to ten. Of course that is also 10, but I cannot write ten because ten is English word, so it cannot store ten inside it. Okay, so it is always going to hold numbers inside it, the integers inside it. So this int which we have written is called as the data type of the variable. Data type means the type of data this variable is going to contain inside it, or it is going to hold inside it now or in the future. That is what we call as data type. The second thing which you need to notice here is how this variable has been created. We joined three words together: number, of, and cars. We joined these three words together so as to create a variable. Notice how the variable name has been written. The first character of the first word is small. The first character of this all the subsequent words O and C, just see of O of the of and C of the cars, they are capital. There are three words: number, of, and car. For the first word, the first character is small, but for all the subsequent words, the first character is capital. Okay, O is capital, C is capital. So this particular way of writing the variables by joining multiple words together, it is called as camel casing. Okay, so camel casing is used when you join multiple words together so as to create one variable. We follow camel casing, that is the convention. So in camel casing, the first character of the first word is small, and for all the subsequent words, the first character is capital. The most common example is, and the most famous example is iPhone, where I is small and P is capital. Okay, so that also follows camel casing. So this variable is created using camel casing, right? If we have to talk about the color of the car, okay, so we talked about a white Audi car. If you have to talk about the color of the car, so how we can write that? So we will say color of the car. Just see here also I joined four words together, but here also we are following camel casing where C is small, O, T, and C are capital. Color of the car is equal to. Now when you have to talk about a word, white is a word which is made by joining English characters together. So you have to write it in double quotes, and then you can write white inside it. So if you have to talk about a word, then you will be writing it in double quotes, and the data type of that will be string. Okay, so if it is a word, you have to write it using the data type of that has to be string. Similarly, if it is a sentence, so let's say you want to say there are 10 Audi cars standing in the parking lot. Out of that, all of them are of different colors. One is white, other is red, other is green, then yellow, black. So there are different colors of Audi which are parked. Which one is your favorite color? So you have to talk about favorite color. So if you want to say white is my favorite color. So if it is a sentence, again you have to put it in double quotes. There can be as many words and in the double quote as you want. There is no uppercase, there is no upper ceiling on that. You can put as many characters as many words as you want in the double quotes, and the data type of that also is string. So if it is a single word, like here white, or if it is a multi-word sentence, whatever that is, the data type of that has to be always string, right? After that, if you have to talk about just one character, if you talk about Tesla Model S, okay, so sometimes they just have one character. If you just have to talk about one character, or Tesla Model X, so this just one character. If you just have to talk about one character, model is equal to, just put single quote and then write S. So if it is one character you're talking about, you have to put single quote, and the data type of that has to be char. Okay, so if it is word, you have to write string as the data type. If it is single character, then you have to use char as the data type. Okay, if you have to talk about true and false values, just like let's say do I have a mark. So again, this I'm creating a variable using camel casing. So I want to say false. So if you have to talk about true or false value, just remember that this true or false is not to be written in double quotes. It is to be written without any double quotes. You have to write false, and the data type of that has to be written as Boolean. Okay. Similarly, if it is a true, data type of that also has to be Boolean. If you have to talk about height of the car, so if I want to say height, so let's say height of the Audi car is some 150 centimeter. So we will write here 150.75. Okay, it is in decimals. So if you have to write 150.75 centimeters. So if it is decimals you're talking about, then the data type of that has to be written as double. In Java, there is one more data type using which you can describe a decimal value. So if let's say you want to talk about the width of the tires. So the tire width is, let's say, 16.75 centimeters. So how can you say width of tires is equal to 16.75? Okay. So if you have to talk about the width of the tires, the second data type which we can use to describe the decimal values, that is float. Okay, so you can also use float as a data type to describe a decimal value. Now the question is, what is the difference between double and a float? So why have we written double and a float, and where do we use that, and why have we put a f with a float as the float data type? Let us see that. When we say double, height is equal to 150.75, and when we write float width of tires, float width of tires is equal to 16.75 f. What's the meaning of that? When you use double as a data type, then a space is allocated to you inside the memory, and this space, let us say this block of memory is allocated to us where you can store your decimal value. So after decimal, we could have filled these spaces which have been left unused. We could have used them, but we did not use that. If you use float as the data type, then the space which is allocated to you, that is very less as compared to double. So here the wastage of the unused spaces is less, right? So float is used when the number of characters which you want to put after the decimal value, that is small. If you just want to store up to 5-6 decimal characters, then you will be using float. If you want to store many characters after the decimal value, then you will be using double as the data type. Okay, so double is just going to allocate more space to you, and float is going to allocate less space to you. Okay, and just to distinguish between them, we have to use f with a float variable. So if we create a float value, okay, if we say the data type is float, then we have to write f with that. If you're using double as the data type, then we don't have to write anything with that. The only thing is here the wastage of memory will be more. So these are the data types which we'll be using quite often in our coming sessions, and in Selenium also we need to use them. So just remember that these are the data types we must understand. Okay, so any question till this point? If you have, then you can ask. No questions? Okay, so we'll just take a break for 5 minutes now, and after that we'll continue with our discussion, and after break we'll see a couple of more things, and then we'll move on to the concept of methods. So let us take a break for 5 minutes now, and then we will continue with our discussion. So yesterday, a couple of guys were asking for changing the time because they wanted to see the World Cup. So in this 5 minutes, you can see that World Cup and you can come back. Okay, so let us start the timer and we'll come back in 5 minutes. See you guys after the break. Alright guys, so let us continue with our discussion. Okay, so World Cup is also in break. Okay, bad luck. So World Cup is also in break, so no worries. So just wait for another 1 hour. After that, you can see everything, and possibly uh, the highlights you can see, of course, after the session. Okay, so let us continue with our discussion. So I'm just going to minimize this bottom section so that we can have more space here. I'm just going to click on this minus symbol. So now we have more space. So in effect, you just have two sections on the screen now, the package explorer and that section where we are actually going to write the code. Okay, so now if you have to print something, because there is again very common thing which we do, we print something on the screen. So how can we print something on the screen? For that we can write here system dot out dot println. That is the syntax we have to write so as to print something. So if I want to say today is Sunday and World Cup final 2, so if you have to print that, you have to write it in system.out.println. Okay, so that is a command we have to give. So now let us click on run. When you click on run for the first time, it says save and launch. Do you want to save this file? Of course, there is no other option. If you click on cancel, it won't run that. So there is no other option. You have to click on OK. Just before OK, just click on this checkbox also, so that it doesn't ask you every time you have to run a program. Just click on yes, always save it and run it. So just click OK after that. So here, that bottom section which I told you here, the console. Okay, so since I minimized it, it came at the top. So just see it here only at the bottom. So it says today Sunday and World Cup final 2. So where we are getting that, we're getting it under the console tab. So system.out.println is a command which we give so as to see the output on the screen. Okay, and this is again a very frequent command we write, system.out.println. So if you have to write this again and again, Eclipse gives us a shortcut for that. So this shortcut is just write sysout and press Control and space together. You don't have to press enter, just write, again I'll say sysout, Control and space. So again, that is a shortcut. So let me write it in the running notes again. Sysout, Control, space. So what is that? It is system.out.println. Right? So here we have system.out.println printed on the screen. So system.out.println, as I told you, will be getting it very often. So I just keep it in minimized mode, this bottom section, because it will just give us more space to write here. So whenever we write that, whenever we execute that code now, so instead of getting the output at the bottom of the screen, you will be getting it at the top here. After you're done with that, after you've seen the output, just click outside here. That output will disappear. So we'll have this way more space. Now just see this, all these variables which you created, they are all have been underlined with a yellow color. Number of cars is underlined with a yellow color of this car, favorite color, model, all of them have been underlined with the red color. What is the reason for that? The reason is, if you keep your pointer on this variable, let's say color of the car, it says the value of the local variable color of the car is not used. It says you created a variable color of the car, but after that you did not use it. Is this something which you created by mistake? If yes, then you can delete that. So this is a warning which we are getting. This yellow symbol which you see, a bulb symbol is coming up there. So yellow in Eclipse is used to give us a warning. So warning is not an error. Error means your program will not run. Warning means there is some problems, but still the program can run. Okay, so it says if this is something which you created by mistake, you can delete that and you can use some other things. Here it is just a warning. So let us just use this. So here I'm going to write color of the car. Now color of the car is a variable, right? So now just see, the moment I wrote it here, that yellow line from below that color of the car just disappeared. That means we have used it. First we created a variable, now we have used it. If we execute that, so here we see white is also coming up. I can also print color of the car at the end is equal to plus color of the car. So what does this mean? So plus is this is called as concatenation operator. Concatenation operator means that operator which helps us to concatenate. What is concatenating? Concatenating means joining two things together. So what are we joining here? We are joining what is written in the double quotes plus the color of the car. Color of the car contain a variable. It contains a value inside it. So what will it do if we execute that? It is going to print color of the car at the end is equal to white. So just see that if I execute it, so it says color of the car at the end is equal to white. So till this is equal to, the value is coming from the double quote and this white is coming from the variable color of the car. So this is what we call as concatenation, joining two or multiple things together, right? So this is concatenation. So this is very basic stuff which you need to know, which you need to understand. I hope this is clear to you. So are all of you, are you clear with this till this thing, this till this point, whatever we've discussed? Are you clear with this? If you have any questions or doubts, then you can ask before we move on to the next topic. Okay, cool. So now let us move on to next topic. After this classes and object, we're going to talk about method. Very important, very frequently used topic. So just understand this in detail. What is a method? The definition says a method is a set of code which is referred to by name and can be called at any point in a program simply by utilizing the method's name. That is the definition of a method, right? Let us try to understand that with an example. What is a method? So I'm going to show you a couple of drawings here, just a moment. Now on your screen, you see some words are written inside certain boxes. These boxes like add, call, French fries, power source, these boxes, just assume that these are draggable and droppable boxes. I can drag and drop these boxes according to requirement, and using these boxes, we can create anything. Let's say I want to create a calculator. If I want to create a calculator, just read these boxes and tell me which boxes will be required to create a calculator. Just read them, take your time. These boxes are not in any order. Read them and type your answer in the chat box. Which boxes will be required to create a calculator? Yes. What do you think? What should we write here? Okay, just I got one answer. Okay, what about other people? What do you think we should write here? What are the boxes required to create a calculator? Alright, so okay, so the other answers we got here are like uh, add, subtract, multiply, divide. Okay, so the answers which I've gotten here are saying we should be using, I should be dragging and dropping the tiles or the boxes as add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Of course, these are also required. Along with that, we require two more boxes. We require power source, we require plastic outer casing also. Why we require that? Power source, of course, is required to power all the components, and plastic outer casing is required to hold on all the components together. So just extra two things. Of course, you are correct about add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Other two boxes are also required. So let us use these to create a calculator. So how will we create a calculator? Let's see that. So if I drag a plastic outer casing, this is going to be a plastic outer casing. Plastic outer casing. Now inside this we have to put the other components, add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So let us put add first, and subsequently we will put multiply, divide and uh, subtract as well. But first let us just work with add. If our add works, then we'll go with the other boxes as well. First we'll create a prototype just which is going to have the add functionality. Along with that, we will also put power source. So these are some basic components we require so as to create a calculator. So let us just follow this figure so as to create a calculator in Java also. Let us see how do we do that. So here I'm going to create a class and I'm going to call it as calculator. Inside this calculator, now as I told you, everything we have to write has to be written inside the class calculator. If you want to increase the size of this, you can increase this by pressing enter. But whatever has to be written inside the calculator class, right? So this is just like, if you think of it, isn't it just like plastic outer casing? Whatever we have to place, whatever components have to be placed, they are to be placed inside plastic outer casing. So in one way, we can say plastic outer casing is similar to a class. Okay, just like a plastic outer casing is going to hold all the components inside it, similarly a class is going to hold all the code inside it, right? Now let us move on. We are done with the plastic outer casing. Now let us move on to add. So I have to put in the add component. Now this add module which we have to put inside this, let's say these components or these boxes are available in the market. I go to the market, I buy these components and I assemble my own calculator. Now I can pay for that and buy these components, but there is someone who is manufacturing that. There is one manufacturer who's manufacturing that. So how a manufacturer will manufacture these boxes, let us see that. The one who is going to manufacture the add component, if you open this component, if you open this box, you will see something like this written inside it. Okay, so this is the code which will be written inside it. It will have something like public. We don't know what is public, so just ignore. It will have void inside this. We don't know what is void. It will have add. Add is the name of the module. Then it will have int a comma int b. What is this int a and int b? A and b represent spaces, the placeholders. So they tell us that this add module will accept in the future, when we will use it, it will be accepting two variables a and b. The data type of that is going to be int. Okay, so we will be replacing these a and b with some integer values. For example, we will be passing on to this module values like 10 and 20. Okay, so we're just telling what kind of values are going to replace this a and b in the future. We're writing it like int a, int b. A is going to be an integer value and b is also going to be an integer value. Okay, so after those values have been given here, we are saying system.out.println. Just print what to print? The values of A and B which are being forwarded to this module A and B. Okay, so it is going to print the sum of 10 plus 20, that is 30. So it is going to print 30 on the screen. Okay, so let us see how do we write that. So we're going to write the same thing here. We have to put the add module in our calculator. So I'm going to write exactly same thing, public void add int A int B. And here we will write system.out.println. The shortcut of that is sysout control space, and here I'm going to write A plus B. So we have written our add module. So let us see the diagram. So we're done with plastic outer casing, we're done with the add module. Now we're going to talk about the power source. Okay, so how this power source is to be written, let us see that. Now power source internally is going to look like this: public static void main string args. So as I told you, without public static void main, our program will not run. Just like without the power source, the calculator will not run. Similarly, without public static void main, our program will not run. So it is just like a power source. So let us write this as well. So we know that to write public static void main, what we do, we have to use the shortcut. Just write main and press Control and space and press enter. So public static void main has also been written. So inside this calculator class, we have two things. One is this public void add, and one is this public static void main. So according to our diagram, we are done with plastic outer casing, we are done with the add module, and we are also done with the power source. We are just left with, we just need to connect this power source and the add module so that the electrical current can start flowing between them and the electrical circuit gets completed. Let us see how does this work. So to connect that, what we're going to do, this electrical connection in a physical electrical circuit can be made using wires, but here we have to use a syntax just to make the connection. So for using that syntax, first you have to create an object. We know that how to create the object. First you have to write the class name. Class name is calculator, so we'll write calculator. Then you have to write the name of the object. Now calculators are of various types. There can be a basic calculator, there can be a scientific calculator, there can be a graphics calculator. Let us create a basic calculator. So I'm going to write basic cal is equal to new calculator. So calculator basic cal is equal to new calculator. Okay, so we've created one object. Now using this object, this basic cal represents something from inside the public static void main. Okay, just notice that we have created this basic cal inside public static void main. So we have to connect it to add. So what will we do here? Write the name of the method, the name of the object, that is basic cal. Now in a physical electrical circuit, you have a wire to make the electrical connections. Here we'll replace it with a dot. Okay, so just consider this dot as a stretchable wire. If you stretch it, it becomes a dot. If you unstretch it, it becomes a dot. So here we have a dot. After that, we'll write the name of the method to which it is to be connected. We have to connect it to add. So we'll write add and press enter. So here it says write the name of A and B. So we're going to write here 10 and 20. That is it. Our program is completed. What does this mean? Let us try to understand that by executing it. I'm going to click on run. We get 30 as the output, so it is working perfectly fine. Let us see how we're getting 30 as the output. Let us understand it step by step. Okay, just see this. When I click on run, first the control goes to public static void main in line number 12. Okay, so control goes to public static void main. After that, it just goes to the next line. Okay, so why it comes to public static void main at step number 1? Because it is just going to ignore whatever is written above that. It is going to just start with public static void main, the very first thing it is going to start with is public static void main. It will look for in the code where the public static void main is written. So public static void main is written in line number 12, so the control goes there. After that, once the control has arrived at some place, after that it is just going to move from top to bottom, okay, step by step. So after that it goes to next line where it sees an object is being created whose name is basic cal. Then it goes to the next line at step number 3. Using that object, it sees there is one particular syntax being followed. There is an object here, then there is a dot, then there is the name of the module add, and here after that we're writing 10 and 20. So it checks the syntax. Is the syntax correct? It always expects us to write it in this syntax. The syntax is correct. We have written the object name, we have written a dot, and we have written the name of the module. So they are absolutely correct. So after that, what it does, it sees that the syntax is correct, but it doesn't know what to do with this syntax. So what is it going to do? After that, the controller is going to look for the add module, okay, where this add module is written. So the control goes out and searches for the add module, and it sees that add is present here in line number 5. Here, the add module is present. So what is it going to do? It is going to replace that a by 10. Okay, so 10 is written here, so it is going to replace the 10 a by 10 and b by 20. Okay, so this 10 and 20 goes along with the search here, because 10 and 20 is the input we're giving. So 10 and 20 go out and it replaces a by 10 and b by 20, and here we will have 10 plus 20 as 30. Okay, so it prints 30, and that is the 30 which we saw there when we click on run. This 30 which we are seeing, this is coming from line number 6. Okay, so here we get 30 as the output, and after that it goes to next line. Okay, so once the control jumps at one particular line, after that it just has to move from top to bottom. So after this line number 6, it goes to line number 7 where it says this module is ending here. After that it has to go to back to the main method. So it comes here in line number 17 because the control moved out of this public static void main from line number 15. After that, line number 15, what do we have? After line number 15, we have line number 17, where it sees that it is the end of public static void main. After that, it goes here to line number 22, where it sees that it is the end of the calculator class, and that is how the execution gets completed. And we get 30 as the output here. Okay, so is this program clear to you? First of all, how the control is moving from one place to another place. Do you guys understand this? How are we getting this output? Any doubts or any questions? If you have, then you can ask. Okay, no questions? All right. Okay, so let us understand the terminology here. This add is called as a method. Okay, so there is no concept called as module in Java. I just told you that add is a module so as to understand the concept, but add is a method. Okay, so what is a method? Why do we use a method? A method is a way of doing something. Okay, so by writing public void add int b system.out.println a plus b, we've written that we're going to add two numbers. We've told Java how to add two numbers. We've told it that this is the way the numbers are to be added. Now, whenever we have to add these two numbers, we just are going to call this add method. So here we say we are calling the add method with 10 and 20 as the input. So here you can say we are calling the add method or we are invoking the add method. So we can say calling or invoking the add method. Okay, so after writing, let's say 50 lines of code, you can again call this add method because we've already defined to the system that how we have to add the method. So we can say basic_cal.add. So now I can give a different input. I can say 50 and 70. Okay, so here I can execute that. So here it gives us the output corresponding to 120. So since we've already told our system that how to add the numbers, we're just calling the add method by giving 10 and 20 as the input and 50 and 70 as the input. So we're just giving the inputs here, and Java will give us the output. So a method is that code, that part of the code which we write so as to tell the system how to do a particular task. After that, the system is just going to follow the instructions so as to do the repeated task. So addition is a repeated task. We wrote it separately. Now we just need to give the input. It is always going to give us the output accordingly. So I see one question here. There's a question. Can we write system.out.println a plus b below basic cal? Okay, so Seema, you want to say that this entire thing which we have written, you want to write it after line number 11. That is what you're saying? Okay, so you want to say just system.out.println you want, right? Okay, so let me just paste it once again here. I just comment this code out. So just see, I want to comment a section of the code. Okay, I want to disable this code. So what I can do, just select the code and press Control and // so that part of the code will be commented out. Okay, so now we've disabled this code. So there's a question here. The question is, can we write system.out.println after line number 16? Here, do you want to write here, Seema, in line number 17, do you want to write system.out.println? Okay, so sys out here, you want to add 10 and 20. Of course, you can write it here also, but see, if I have to add the numbers, just see that. If I execute that, now there is no need to create a method. There's no need to create an object. So if I just execute this program, still we will get output as the 30. So we're getting system.out.println 10 plus 20, still we're getting 30 as the output. But earlier, how did we get the output? There we told the computer how the numbers are to be added. Here we haven't told the system how the numbers are to be added. You will say this is actually an easier way of doing that. By just writing system.out.println, we're just not moving the control up and below. You're correct, but this is just an example we're giving. Okay, so this is a very simple task which we have said that just to add the numbers, and the number addition is to be done by a method. But in real world things, we do complex things where we define separately that how a particular task is to be executed. Just like after executing the test case, trigger an email to the supervisor and all other stakeholders. To do that task, we will create a method. Okay, so we'll be doing it in Selenium. So to do that task, we will create a method. Inside that method, we will write the logic to trigger an email. Now, when you have to write that logic, it is not going to be a single line logic. It will be a multiple line logic. So it will be around 100, 200 lines of code we'll be writing there. Okay, so every time you execute a program, you have to trigger an email. For that, there will be a method. Okay, so method will be kept separately where we have to do a task. So here we had to do a task of addition of two numbers. So we created a method. So since this task was very simple task, you can achieve the same output by writing system.out.println directly also. But this is not going to work in complex scenarios. When there are complex scenarios, we cannot write the entire code within public static void main. We write the pieces of code, the separate logics are to be written outside the public static void main. Public static void main is just to be written, is just to be used to give the instructions. Actual logic is to be written outside the public static void main. So as a rule, I should not be writing it here. Okay, so though it works, that is a separate thing, but the convention is whenever you have to define a logic, whenever you have to tell your system that this is how a task is to be done, that should be written outside the public static void main, just like we wrote earlier. Okay, so the main logic should not be written inside public static void main. This is just a convention. Okay, so this helps your code clean, keep your code clean, and uh, group the similar lines together. So we just keep it clean this way, right? Public static void main is just for giving the instructions. Actual instructions, actual logic is to be written outside public static void main, right? So I'll just bring it back to the way it was earlier. Okay, so we are done with that, right? So as I told you, why do we use the methods? We use methods so as to do a repeated task again and again. Now, the same way we have seen that our add prototype is working, we can add the numbers. The same way we can subtract the numbers as well. So if I want to subtract the numbers, so what will I do? First, I'll have to describe how the subtraction has to be done. So first I'll create a method for that. So I'm going to write here public void subtract. Same logic, public void subtract int a, int b. So here we will define how to subtract the numbers. So we're going to write this out. A minus b, right? So to subtract the numbers, what will I do? We have created add method, we have created a subtract method, but until we call the subtract method, we cannot get the output. So to call the subtract method, first you have to create the object, basic cal, then you have to call the method using a dot subtract, and then you have to give the input. So I want to subtract 10 from 50. So let's execute that. So it says 40. So 50 minus 10 comes out to be 40. Similarly, we can define the logic for division and multiplication also. So we can write here public void multiply int a, int b, sys out a into b. Similarly, to divide the numbers, we're going to write here public void divide int a, int b, a by b. Okay, so we have defined 4 methods: add, subtract, multiply, and divide. But we're just calling 2 methods, add and subtract. Until the object calls these methods, we won't get any output corresponding to these methods. Just see, I'm going to run that. We just get the output corresponding to the add and subtract method, because these are the only 2 methods which have been called by the object basic cal. Basic cal hasn't called the other methods add, subtract, multiply, and divide. That is why there is no output corresponding to these methods. Okay, so until an object calls these methods, we don't get any output. So that is why we say it is object-oriented programming. Object holds the prominence here. Object first will call these methods, then only will get the output. So I'm going to call these methods basic cal dot subtract. Subtract is also already done. Multiply. So basic cal dot multiply. So to multiply this, we'll say 10 into 20. And similarly to divide, we will write basic cal dot divide. Okay, so to divide the numbers, let's say we want to divide 1000 by 200. So now execute that. So here it says 30 is coming from add, 40 is coming from subtraction, 200 is coming from multiplication, and 5 is coming from division, right? So this is how we are going to write the code. This a and b which we've written in the parameters public void add int a and int b, this a and b are called as formal parameters. A and b are called as formal parameters. Similarly, this 10 and 20, or this 50 and 10, these actual values which we're giving, these are called as 50 and 10 are called as actual parameters. So there are formal parameters and there are actual parameters, right? So just see, when we write the code, sometimes this kind of thing happens. There are some extra spaces which are coming up there. I want to remove these extra spaces because this way the code doesn't look symmetric. Or sometimes what happens is, while writing the code, you will have this code moved entirely to the left hand side of the system. So if you have this kind of thing and you want to bring it in its normal form, I want to remove the unnecessary spaces and I want to give it proper indentation. This is called as indentation. Indentation is the tab which is given after creating the class or the method. So I want to give a proper indentation here. So what I can do, just press Ctrl, Shift and F. So when you press Ctrl, Shift and F, it removes unnecessary spaces and gives the proper indentation. Just see, now all the unnecessary spaces have been removed. It is just giving us some symmetric code. Okay, all the spaces are symmetric, so it is giving us a symmetric code. Okay, so I'll write this shortcut here also. What I pressed Control, Shift and F. So what it does, it removes extra spaces and gives proper indentation. Okay, so that is another shortcut. So the method program is also done. Let us read the definition of method once again. Any questions or any doubts, if you have, then you can ask. Here it says a method is a set of code which is referred to by name. So we have created 4 methods: add, subtract, multiply and divide. These are all the names of this method: add, subtract, multiply, divide, and they have a set of code. We wrote certain code inside that, how to add the numbers, how to subtract the numbers, how to divide the numbers. So we wrote the code inside that. So a method is a set of code which is referred to by name and can be called or invoked. Okay, calling or invoking is the same thing. Can be called or invoked at any point in a program simply by utilizing the method's name. Okay, so when we have to call the method, we have to use its name. We wrote basiccal.add, basiccal.subtract, or basiccal.multiply. So we have to write the name of the method if you have to call that. Okay, so that is what we call as invoking the method. Right? So here from this program, what you need to understand, what you need to remember, whenever you have to call a method, you always have to follow this notation: object.method. This rule, if you remember that, it will be very easy for you to learn Selenium also, because this is the same rule which we'll be following in Selenium also. There also we have to create the object of the class, then you have to put a dot, then you have to call a method. So just remember this rule: whenever you have to call a method, you have to write object.method. Okay, so now before we move on to next topic, if you have any questions or doubts, then you can ask. Otherwise, we'll move on to next topic. You can ask any question if you have. In this program. No questions? Okay. Okay, so let us move on to the next topic we're going to see here. The next thing we're going to see is, just like here we created a method add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and we called it in the same class. How can we call the method in some other class? Let us see that. So let's create a new class in this demo package. I'm going to create a new class and we're going to call it as a test class. So what are we going to do here? Inside this test class, so I'm just going to drag this test class to this side. Okay, so that these two classes can be kept side by side. Okay, so now what we have the calculator class, and here we have a test class. Both are present in the same package. What I want to do is I want to use this add method inside this test class. Okay, because in programming we can reuse the code. We've already told the system that how to add the numbers. Now I can reuse this code. I can call this method add inside this test class. How are we going to do that? That is, I'm going to tell you here. So just create a main method. Main method is important every time you have to create a main method. So just create a main method. After that, you have to create the object. Okay, so I told you to call a method, you need to write object, you need to put a dot, then you write the method name. Then the question is, whose method do you need to call? Okay, whose object should I create? I am in the test class. Should I create the object of test class or should I create the object of calculator class? That is the question. Whose object should we create? Now, just remember that always create the object of that class whose method you want to call. I want to call add method. Where is it present? It is present in calculator class. So I should be creating the object of calculator class, not of the test class. So I'm going to write here calculator. Then we'll write the name of the object basic cal is equal to new calculator. Okay, so basic cal is the name of the object. Whose object is this? It is the object of calculator class. Where are we creating that? We are creating it in test class. Okay, so we are creating it in test class because inside this class I want to use the method of this calculator class. So to use the method of this calculator class, I need to create the object of this calculator class. That's what I just did. So I created the object of calculator class, and here I'm going to write basic cal dot add. That's it. Just write 20 and 40, and if we execute it, we get 60 as the output. So always create the object of that class whose method you want to call. Right? I hope this is clear to you. How are we calling the method from one class in another class? Right? So we're calling the method from here to here. We're calling the method here. Right? Now, both these classes, this test class and calculator class, both are present in the same package. If I create a new package, then we can face a problem. Just see, I'm going to create a new package here. Just right click your source folder and create a new package, and we're going to name it as demo2. So we're creating a separate package whose name is demo2. Inside this package, I'll create a new class, because always when you have to create a class, you have to create it inside a package. So first you have to create a package, then you have to create a class. That is what I just did. I created a package and I'm going to create a class test. Okay, so we've created a test class inside this demo2 package. Okay, so let me just call this test2. Okay, so test is already created. Let us call it as test2. So if I want to create test2 package, what I can do, just right click this, go to refactor, and then click on rename. Okay, so that is how you can rename a class. Directly you cannot change the name of the class. If you want to rename a class, right click, refactor, rename, and here we'll call it as test2 finish. So we've created a test2 class. The name of the class has been changed. So again, we'll follow the same rule. If you want to call this add method inside this test2 class, first we have to create the object of calculator class. Okay, so and before that also we'll create a main method. Inside this main method, now we'll create the object of calculator class. Basic cal is equal to new calculator. Now there's a problem here. When we're trying to create the object here, this calculator is being underlined with the red color. What's the reason for that? So whenever you see a red color, always take your pointer and keep on that word where the red line is being shown to you. So we'll take it here. When we take it here, it shows us this yellow box. It says calculator cannot be resolved to a type. It says it doesn't understand what is this calculator. Since the packages have changed, outside the packages, the classes do not recognize each other. So this test2 class cannot recognize calculator class because both of them are present in a separate package. So what will we do here? It says calculator cannot be resolved to a type, but it says 8 quick fixes are available. So one of the quick fixes, it says import calculator from the demo package. It says, are you talking about the calculator class which we created in demo package? Yes, that is what we are talking about. So just click on that import calculator. So when we do that, just see the red line has been removed and there's one line written here in line number 3. It says import demo.calculator. Okay, so it says import this calculator class from the demo package. So since we have made a reference to the calculator class from the demo package. Now the red line has been removed. Now we can do the same thing. We can write basic cal dot add 10 and 2. So now if I execute that, we get 12 as the output. So you can call any method from one class in separate class this way. You just have to create the object of the class like this. So since we wanted to call the method of calculator class, we created the object of calculator class. So we're creating the object of calculator class, calculator basic cal is equal to new calculator, and after that we're just calling that method using basic cal dot add. Right? So that is how you can call any method from any class. So do you understand this logic here? Is this logic clear to you? How method of one class is being called in another class? Are you guys clear with this? Because this concept will be using in Selenium also. Okay, so if you understand this logic, then I'll just tell you what Selenium is. Selenium is just a bunch of classes. Selenium is just a group of classes which have been created by some people and they have distributed it on the internet. What we will be doing, we'll be using those classes because inside those classes they have created the methods. They have created the method to do every task. They've defined how to open a browser, they have defined how to close a browser, how to do this, how to do that. For everything there's a method defined in Selenium. So Selenium is just a bunch of classes. What will we be doing? We'll be creating a test classes like this. To use the methods of the classes, first we'll be creating the object of that class, and using that object we'll be calling the method in Selenium. That is it. That's the complete story about Selenium. Selenium is just some bunch of classes which contain methods inside it. To use those methods, we just need to create the object. We need to write object.method. That is it. Right? So that'll give you an idea about Selenium, what Selenium is. Okay. So I'll just bring these classes back here. So that is simple drag and drop which I did. So that is your concept of method, classes, and object. If you have any question here, you can ask any question Otherwise, we'll wind up for today, because this is the thing which you need to know, which you need to understand before we start with Selenium, which we'll be doing in the next class on Saturday. So before we start with that, just make sure that you practice these topics which we have covered today, the concept of class, the concept of object, and how do we create a method, okay, inside a class. So how do we call a method? By creating the method inside this class. How do we call a method in a different class? How do we call a method in a different class and a different package? So you practice this so that when we start next Saturday with Selenium, you're clear with all these concepts, because this is what we'll be using in Selenium next Saturday. Okay, so we'll be winding up here. You'll be getting this document today along with the video link for today. So any questions or any doubts if you have before we wind up for today, then you can ask. No questions? All right, so here we'll be winding up, guys. Thank you so much for joining in. See you in the next class on Saturday. Till then, goodbye and have a wonderful week ahead. Bye bye.